Hey guys, I'm back with another video. This is gonna be a video on my twin pregnancy. I've been wanting to put my kids in my videos for a while now, but I feel like it would be kind of weird to just pop them in without, I guess, introducing them, if that makes any sense. Most people I watch on YouTube kind of did YouTube before they even got pregnant, and so you were able to watch their pregnancy journey and all of that. And because I wasn't doing anything on YouTube then, I decided that I think I would just go ahead and film the whole story for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in because it's a very long story and there's a lot of details. So wish me luck. I don't know how much battery life I have either. I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot of battery life, so wish me luck. So me and my husband got married in 2013 and we pretty much started trying for a baby immediately, only because we had been together for so long before we wanted to just, get it going. And when I say try for a baby, we both told each other, we're gonna try, but we're not gonna try. I wasn't tracking my ovulation. We were just kind of being married, and if it happened, it happened. And then I eventually got pregnant, but unfortunately lost that baby. I then got pregnant again about a year later, and again I lost that baby. So at this point we had a feeling that something was wrong, and we kept saying that we weren't trying, I think to make ourselves feel better about it, because we were trying. At that point we had lost 2 babies and we really wanted one, but we just said, we're not actively trying. But we both knew what weeks I was ovulating, so we obviously were trying. We just didn't want to, hurt ourselves. So I get pregnant a 3rd time, and this time I didn't lose the baby before my first ultrasound, so I got to go to the ultrasound and I was so excited to see the baby. And when they actually did the ultrasound, all they found was the sac, and the baby had already passed away. The baby had only made it to about 4 weeks and had passed. So here we are, 3rd miscarriage. And at this point, we were just inconsolable. We really just wanted to be parents. Everybody that I know started having kids really early, and so, I was the only person who didn't have any kids at all, and I felt like my biological clock was ticking. So we really had a hard one with that, because we were able to see the baby. I didn't lose it before the ultrasound this time, and I also think that I was further along in this pregnancy because that miscarriage was bad. I decided to do it naturally at home, and I ended up losing a lot of blood and ended up passing out. My husband had to catch me. But from all of that, we also found out that I'm Rh negative. I have O negative blood. And so what that means is 89% of humans have an antigen on the outside of their red blood cells. And that antigen is traced back to the rhesus monkey. And unfortunately, because I am Rh negative, I don't have that, and my body will kill any baby that's inside of me if my husband doesn't have the same blood type as me. And because he's positive and I'm O negative, my body kept killing the babies. But we found out why, and luckily we live in a beautiful day and age where I was able to just get a simple shot, and my doctor said, wait about 3 months so you can heal and go ahead and try again. And I said, okay, hopefully 4th time's the charm. So 3 months comes and I'm ovulating, and me and my husband say, might as well give it a shot. We went ahead and we tried. And the weirdest thing happened. Immediately when we were done trying, I got this butterfly feeling in my stomach, and I just felt like this was gonna work. And it almost made me nauseous, the feeling. It was so intense, and I just told myself, this is it. I'm pregnant and it's gonna stick this time. I just knew it. So the next month we ended up going to the La Brea Tar Pits for our anniversary, and I had noticed on the way up there that I was getting very, very car sick. Mind you, I get car sick a lot, but this was a different kind of car sick. Seeing cars drive by was making me sick. Closing my eyes was making me sick. I realized I was pretty sick. So we get to the La Brea Tar Pits and we're walking around, and I just remember everything was making me want to cry. And I'm like, what is going on? Why am I wanting to cry at every last thing that I'm seeing? And of course, it passed my mind, wow, maybe I'm pregnant. But there was really no proof at that point. So as we're walking around the La Brea tar pits and learning about everything, people told us that they had to close early because the sewage wasn't working. I guess it happens quite a bit there, and because there's so much tar around the area, it blocks up the sewage, and so they had to close early because no bathrooms were in use. So me and my husband are wandering around downtown LA trying to figure out what we're going to do, and we decided, you know what, let's just go ahead and watch a movie. I was working out with my friend at the gym, and we were talking about American Sniper, and, decided to go watch that. And I remember during the movie, I just kept crying. And it got so bad towards the end that we weren't able to leave the movie theater until after the credits were over because I couldn't control the crying. I couldn't make it stop. I was so embarrassed. Luckily, it was dark in the theater. Songs on the way home were making me cry. Everything was making me cry. And I told myself, I'm like, wow, maybe I am pregnant. And about a week later, my friend calls me and is like, I'm going to take my girlfriend to the casino. Do you want to come with us? And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. And I hadn't met her girlfriend yet. So I thought that, would be a cool time. If I didn't like the girl, I could just wander off and find my own slot machine to play with. We ended up stopping at Walmart to get money before we went to the casino. And as I went in, I decided that I was going to pick up a couple of the Cheapo Depot Walmart pregnancy tests and see what happens. 98 cents. I mean, why not? So I grabbed 2, put them in my purse. We went to the casino, and after we were done at the casino, I called my husband and I told him, I'm like, honey, I lost all of the money. Luckily, I think I maybe gambled away like $40. $40 is still $40, but I was like, yeah, I lost it all. And I lost it pretty quick too, to be honest. So I go ahead and come home, and I immediately went into the bathroom at probably 11 o'clock at night, and I took the pregnancy test. And my husband at this point has no idea that I'm taking it. And I finish going to the bathroom. By the time I stand up, I already see a second line, and I'm like, oh crap, I'm pregnant. Yes, hopefully it sticks this time. Hopefully everything's cool. And so I was wearing this big heavy jacket because I was so cold. And I come out with the jacket, and he sees my hand in the pocket, and I'm like, you want to see something cool? And he got super excited and was like, oh, you did win at the casino. And I was like, no, but we're pregnant. And he looked at the line and he's like, oh, I was hoping it was money. That line's kind of like, I don't want to get my hopes up. And of course he was joking. He was really excited. But I thought that was kind of funny. So the next morning, I go ahead and I take another pregnancy test, and that lane came back so dark. And I showed it to him, and I was like, told you so. And he was like, my goodness, I guess we are. We're going to have to go ahead and make an appointment. And I just remember hoping and praying that the blood test would come back with really high HGC levels, because that would mean that the baby was sticking. And until my appointment, I had bought multiple tests, and I realized through my other miscarriages that if you pee on it and the line gets lighter, that means your levels are going down. And so every time I would pee on it, the line would just keep getting darker and darker and darker. So I kept telling myself, this is good, the baby's sticking, I'm so excited. But because I had had so many miscarriages before, my doctor told me that he wanted me to get an ultrasound before I had even went to his appointment. And I said, that's great, I would love to do that. So ultrasound day comes, and I was so giddy at work. I was working at Walmart at the time, and I just remember I couldn't concentrate on anything, and I just wanted to hurry up and get out of there. I was going to meet my husband at the ultrasound clinic, and we were going to go find out if the baby had stuck. So I get in there, and my husband was running late from work, and they called me back, and I said, my husband's going to be here any minute, so, if he comes to the front desk, can you just show him to the room? And they said, yes, no problem. So as I'm waiting for him, I'm laying there, and she's doing the ultrasound, and she says the dreaded words, I'm going to have to do the transvaginal ultrasound. And every time she said that before, it's because she wasn't able to see a heartbeat. And so I was waiting for the dreaded, because I can't find a heartbeat. And instead she says, because I think there might be 2 heartbeats. And I thought to myself, what? So she goes and says, I don't want you to get your hopes up, but at least there's one. It could be in a mirror image. So we're going to go ahead and do the transvaginal to find out. And by that time, my husband had come. and she's in the process of setting up for the transvaginal, and he looks at me and he's like, so what's the news? And I didn't want to say anything. And so I told him they have to do the transvaginal. But I guess I couldn't keep a straight face because I knew there was at least one heartbeat, and I had a half smirk, and he's like, because, with a big old smile, and I was like, because she thinks she's seeing 2 heartbeats. And he jumped out of that chair so fast and was like, good job, baby! And he gave me a big old high five, and the lady just starts cracking up. So we go ahead and start the transvaginal, and she goes, bingo! And I said, what? And she's like, you're having twins. And I just remember I sat up on that table and I looked at her and I was like, shut the fuck up. And she's like, excuse me. I said, I'm sorry. And the rest of the time when she was trying to do the ultrasound, she couldn't get any of the measurements because my legs were shaking. I was shaking. And she told me, she was like, you have to stop moving, honey. I cannot get any of the measurements because you're moving too much. And I just remember I was so cold, and I told her, I'm trying really, really hard. I'm so sorry. And she looked at me and she's like, honey, you're in shock. And I was like, 2 babies. And we were just over the moon happy. Not only did we have 1 baby stick, but we had 2 babies stick. We went to the car and we cried, and we called family and showed them the ultrasound, but didn't want to announce it to anybody else just because we knew that we had had so many miscarriages before. We didn't want to get our hopes up. So I go to my appointment. My doctor tells me, he's like, looks like it's definitely twins, and he had an old school ultrasound machine and he pulled it out, and I just remember getting so scared, hoping that I had still seen 2 heartbeats. And lo and behold, my 2 little babies were still in there, hearts beating, they were kicking around already, and he said they looked very healthy, their heartbeats are healthy. And I said, great. And I was so excited that I had still had babies. I got to see my babies on the screen 2 times, and for me that was huge because, you know, all I had ever seen before was my baby who had already passed away. And then about 3 weeks later, I was sitting on my couch and this giant gush of blood came out. And I looked down and was like, what in the world? And my heart started pounding, and I told myself, this isn't good. But then I thought to myself, every single time that I've had a miscarriage before, it's never happened like this. It's been slow, you know. It started out light and then it got heavier and heavier until I had passed the baby. What's going on? And so I called my doctor, and he immediately said, you need to go to the emergency room now. And I said, okay. So I go to the emergency room and they rush me back. And they tell me, they're like, you're probably having a miscarriage. I told them everything. They send me back for an ultrasound. And I look at the machine, and there's my 2 babies just kicking and moving around. And I look at the guy and I say, why am I bleeding so much? And he looked at me and said, you are so lucky. You have a subchorionic hemorrhage, and it's about 1 millimeter away from both of their umbilical cords. So as long as you rest, you should be okay. And I said, wonderful, okay. So at that point, I got put on light duty at work after I came back from bed rest, and everything was good up until 28 weeks. And I just remember I was getting ready for work, and I started getting cramps, and they didn't feel like regular cramps that you get when your uterus is stretching or anything like that. And they just felt different, and they were all the way around my stomach, and my stomach was getting hard. And I thought to myself, crap, I'm having contractions and I'm only 26 weeks. My doctor said I have to make it at least 28 for the babies to really have a fighting chance, and even then it's low. So I call my husband and I tell him, and I get rushed to the emergency room. And she told me, she was like, okay, you are definitely having contractions, but you also seem very dehydrated. So they rehydrated me, and my contractions went away. And I was like, thank goodness. And I didn't even know I was dehydrated. All I do is drink water all the time. So I was shocked that she said that. And she said, for the most part, when women are pregnant, they get dehydrated really easily. So I upped my water intake, and everything was fine. And then at 29 weeks, the contractions came back. So I rush into the emergency room again. They send me to the maternity ward, and she tells me, okay, you don't seem dehydrated, but you're an active labor. You're now dilating. You are effaced. We need to stop these contractions. And so she tried giving me a certain medicine, and that didn't work. I forgot what it was. And then she gave me another dose of that medicine and they finally stopped. And she said, okay, we're going to have to put you on a blood pressure medication called Precardia. She's like, you don't have high blood pressure, but for some reason, the medicine Precardia will stop your contraction. So you need to take this every 4 hours until you deliver the babies. And I said, okay. And it was to the point where I was setting alarms twice at night so I could wake up real quick, take my pill, and then try and go back to sleep, because at that point I was very miserable. She also told me, she was like, if you have contractions again, she said, don't come to this hospital. You need to go to the hospital that you're delivering, because our facility is so small that we're not equipped for a twin pregnancy, and we don't have a NICU. She's like, you're too far along to be coming to this one. She was like, if it's an emergency and you know they're coming, come here. But if you can, you need to leave early and get to the place that you're delivering at. And I said, okay, no problem. At this point in time, I'm getting 2 checkups a week. And my doctor is just checking me to make sure that I'm not dilating more and becoming more effaced. So I go for one of my ultrasounds. I don't remember which one, and I just remember that the next day was my baby shower. And it was probably 9 o'clock at night before my baby shower, and I get a phone call but didn't hear my phone ring, and I listen to the message, and it's my OB, and he says, you're dilated even more and you're more effaced. He was like, you are on strict bed rest. He was like, you get up to urinate and you lay back down. People will bring you food. People will do anything and everything for you. You cannot be moving. We need to keep those babies in longer. And at this point, I was 31 weeks. So at 34 weeks, I come in for my appointment and I tell the doctor, I was like, I can't pee. And he says, what do you mean? And I told him, I'm like, I can't pee. I've been trying to pee all day and nothing will come out, but I feel like I need to pee. And I was so swollen. And my blood pressure was really high. I want to say it was 180 over, I don't even remember. My blood pressure was really high. And he says, you're on blood pressure medication to stop the contractions and your blood pressure is still this high and you can't pee. You need to come back tomorrow to get labs done so that we can find out if you have preeclampsia. And he also said, in all honesty, if you do, I'm going to induce you tomorrow and we're having babies. He said, I only see you probably holding on to the babies for another week anyways because you're huge. He had measured my stomach, and at 34 weeks, I was measuring 44 weeks. And he told me they're big babies. So he went ahead and gave me my steroid shot and said, we're going to have to do what we're going to have to do. I know you want to stay pregnant longer, but I don't see it happening. And I told him with 100% honesty, and I looked him straight in the eye and I said, I am not having these babies this week. I am carrying them until they are 38 weeks. And he looked at me and he laughed. And my husband laughed. And I told them, I was like, it's not funny. I'm keeping these babies in for another month. And they both just said, okay, sure, you do that then. So I leave my doctor's appointment and I sit down in the car and I went into labor. Full-blown, unstoppable labor. At that point, I didn't know it was labor, but I had went into labor. So my husband, knowing that I'm on bed rest, was like, what do you want to eat? And I was like, I'm not even hungry. I was so grumpy. I'm a super nice person and I wanted to rip everyone's head off that day. I was not feeling it. And I told him, I don't care what you get me. I just want to eat and I want to go to sleep. And he was just kind of like, rawr, okay, woman. So we stopped at the grocery store and he decided he wanted fried chicken. The thought of fried chicken at that point made me sick, but I was like, whatever, I'll peel the skin off. And I remember standing in the store and the pain was so bad and I kept thinking, I don't want to be in labor right now. And I just didn't feel good. And at this point, again, you know, I'm huge. And these people are walking by going, oh, you've got to be having twins. Oh, wow, how many babies are in there? And usually I was kind of like, yeah, it's twins. This time I wanted to be like, yeah, it is. And what? I was just so angry. So we get home and I try to make myself some food and I tell my husband, I'm like, something's not right. Something is not right. I can feel that something's not right. We need to go to the hospital. So we go ahead and get me in the car, which was really hard because I was having back contractions, so I was totally stiff. We got me in the car and my husband hit every stop sign at the bare minimum. He was running red lights because the contractions were getting worse. And I was like, oh crap, they were right. I'm not keeping these babies in for another month. So we finally get to the hospital and they hook me up to all the machines and they tell me you're having really big contractions. And they didn't tell me if I was in labor. They didn't tell me if they were going to stop my labor. There was no communication. And I was so frustrated and I was hungry. And they told me you can't eat. And I kept saying, am I in labor? And they said, we can't tell you anything until the doctor comes. The doctor never came. So I spend the night in the hospital. I'm hungry. I'm swollen. I'm bruised because they kept... The babies kept moving. They didn't want the heartbeat monitor on them. And so they kept strapping them tighter and tighter and tighter. I had bruises all over my stomach from the thing. So I was uncomfortable. I was having back labor. I had 5 different straps on my stomach that were tighter than hell. I'm swollen. I can't pee. And I'm nauseous. And I have back labor. Again, back labor. So finally the next day comes and still no doctor. And I'm about to rip people's heads off at this point. I'm like, what the hell is happening? Why have I not been fed? I'm grumpy. And all of a sudden, I look over and I notice that my kids' heart rates are dropping. And I look again, and I'm like, okay, this definitely looks like they're dropping. And as I was about to press the nurse's button, so a nurse comes in and says, yeah, your baby's heart rates are definitely dropping. So we're going to go ahead and order a stress test. They're not low enough to where we have to worry right now, but something's happening. And I said, okay. So we ordered the stress test. And pretty much with the stress test, they watch the babies for a half an hour and they have to move a certain amount of times in a half an hour to be considered healthy. So he's doing the stress test and the babies are just not moving at all. And I think the highest you can get is a 10 and I got a 1. And he tells me, he was like, they have not moved this whole time. They are definitely stressed out. And one of them looks like they had pooped in their water. And I was like, shit. So at this point, the doctor comes in and he says, we're watching the baby's heart rates and they're dropping even lower. Somebody pooped in their water and we need to get them out. And we need to get them out now. And I asked, can we induce? And he said, we need a C-section and it's an emergency. It's a red blanket. I was like, shit, here we go. And it was the weirdest thing. It's like, I'm only 34 weeks, so they're going to be born early. This is an emergency C-section. And I was so scared, but at the same time, I was so excited to be able to meet them. And I felt guilty for being that excited because I knew that it was kind of a serious situation. So we wheel me into the operating room and they tell me that I need to sit up so that they can put the spinal block or the epidural in or whatever it was. Because that whole time they kept asking me if I wanted pain medicine, which should have been a clue that I was in labor. And I kept saying no. Well, because I had no pain medication, they had to hurry up and get the needle in me. So they were having me lean forward and they were trying to put the needle in my back. And because I was so swollen from not being able to pee and retaining all of the water, they couldn't find where they had to put it. And the anesthesiologist had poked me 18 different times. Finally, he got it in and he says, are your toes numb? And I said, yes, sir, they are. And I thought, okay, we're going. So they lay me back down on the table and my water breaks all over the operating table. And I told them, I was like, I'm so sorry. And they said, oh, honey, don't worry, it's normal. And looking back, I'm glad that my water broke on the operating table because I think that if it didn't, I would have always questioned if I made the right decision because I'm stubborn and I'm not the smartest. So I was almost thankful that it had, broke on the operating table. So they go ahead and lay me down and he says, your toes are numb. And I said, yes, sir. He says, are your legs numb? And I said, no, sir. And he goes, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't know, my toes are numb. Can't feel those, but I can feel my legs. And so he goes and he pinches me where he's about to do the incision. And I go, ow. And he says, you can feel that. I said, yes. So then I have a doctor at my head and a doctor down south, and they're pinching me. And they're saying, well, which pinch hurts more? And I'm like, the pinch down there hurts more. How is that possible? And they thought that I was lying. So the doctor up towards my head starts talking to me, and the other doctor just suddenly pinches me. And I look and I'm like, ow. And they were like, oh, you can feel it. Well, no shit, I'm not lying. So they were like, okay, we think the medicine went to the wrong spot, so we're going to go ahead and turn you upside down. And I said, what? And they leaned the operating table back, so I was slanted towards my head because they were trying to get the medicine to come closer to where the incision was. Unfortunately, that didn't work, and they looked over and said their heart rates are dropping, and they're dropping quick. We gotta do it now. So I look over, and they have the gas mask ready, and they go and they put me under, and I just remember looking at my husband and telling him, if I die, love the kids and tell them how much I wanted them. And that was one of the scariest moments of my life, to know that I finally get to meet my children and I may not make it, because I was so afraid of being put under. So obviously I go under and I know nothing that's happening, and then I just remember waking up and my husband's next to me, and I was like, am I alive? And he said, yes, you're alive. And he tried to show me pictures, but I was so out of it that I couldn't see the pictures. But I said, okay, go take care of the babies. And he said that they're in the NICU and that they're hooked up to a lot of tubes. And sorry about that, my camera decided to stop recording. So I wake up from the anesthesia and I try to look at the pictures of my kids, can't really see them, and I just hear one of the nurses say, doctor, she's losing a lot of blood. And they were like, she's bleeding a lot, doc. And one of the other nurses says, are you sure you got everything out? And then I just remember hearing him say, yeah, I scooped her out good. Which, ew. So at that point, I just remember I had went out of consciousness. And then I came back into it a little bit, and I just remember I heard, she's still losing a lot of blood, doc. We really gotta get a handle on this. And I kind of looked over, and I just saw a bunch of towels full of blood, and I thought to myself, holy shit, I'm dying. I knew this was going to happen. I knew I was going to die, and I was so scared. And then boom, I went out of consciousness again. And then I kind of came back to again, and I had looked up, and I just saw these bags of greenish yellow stuff. And they told me, they're like, we're needing to give you a plasma infusion. And I said, okay. And then I remember I had passed out again. And I said, ow, ow, ow. And they go, oh, your epidural didn't work. We're going to give you some Dilaudid to make you feel better. And I said, okay. So all of a sudden they shoot me full of this stuff and I fall asleep again. At this point I knew I had fallen asleep versus lost consciousness. And next thing I remember is I'm in and out of consciousness, in and out of sleep, whatever it is, because I don't take pain medication. And that stuff was really, really strong. And I just remember the nurses saying, honey, you have to help us. Because I'm a larger person. Plus all of the water that I was retaining and everything like that. The day that I went into labor, I was 273 pounds. Mind you, my babies are fraternal. So that's 2 placentas, 2 waters, 2 babies, 2 umbilical cords. You get the picture. Plus all of the fluid that I had been retaining. It was definitely, I was heavy. And these little nurses were so petite. And so I did my best to help them. And I do remember them saying, like, wow, you're really strong. Good job, honey. So I helped them transfer me from the gurney to my hospital bed. And I just remember sleeping again. And at some point I remember waking up to the sweetest little nurse. She comes in and she was like, I have another shot of Dilaudid for you. And I looked at her and I was like, no, you get that away from me. And she goes, are you sure you're in pain? I'm like, I can deal with the pain. I want to see my kids. What time is it? And she told me it's about 3 in the morning. And I was like, where's my husband? And she goes, oh, I don't know. And so I remember picking up the hospital phone and I looked at the keypad and I dialed his phone number because I didn't know where my cell phone was. I didn't know anything. And I dial his number and he answers and he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm confused. Like, what's happening? And he told me, oh, you know, you delivered around 6 and I guess you've been unconscious this whole time and been asleep off and on. So I said, okay. So at that point, one of the lovely nurses came in and she was like, I brought you water. And I don't know if it was because I had been losing so much water or if it was the loss of blood, but I was so thirsty. I've never in my life been that thirsty before. And she brought me water. She said, don't chug it, because if you chug it, you're going to throw up. And I said, okay. And so I sat there and I started sipping the water. And she comes back in and she's like, "Ooh, you filled up this catheter again." And I asked her, "Well, how many times have I filled it up?" And she's like, "You've filled this catheter up about 12 times. You are retaining a lot of water, honey." And I said, "Oh, but at least it's coming out." And I just remembered I didn't have to pee and it felt great. So she comes back in and she tells me, she's like, "Do you want to go try and see the kids?" And I said, "Yes, please." And so that's when I really felt the pain. And I had gotten out of bed and kind of hobbled on over to the wheelchair, and she had wheeled me down to the NICU. And I remember going into the NICU, and as I'm walking in, I hear a baby crying. And I look at the nurse that's pushing me and I said, "If that baby over there is a boy, that's my son." And she's like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "I don't know, but that's my baby. And if there's two of them, the other one is mine." I'm like, "Those are my babies." And lo and behold, I was right. That was Cyrus. And I went and I held him, and it was the weirdest thing. I was amazed at how beautiful he was and about how small he was. He was so small, but he really wasn't as small as he could have been. I guess now's a good time to tell you. Both boys were born at 6:03 p.m. Baby A became baby B because I had the C-section versus delivered naturally. And because they were on top of each other, they got switched, if that makes any sense. So baby A, Cyrus, was born at 6:03 p.m. and he was 5 pounds 9 ounces and he was 16.9 inches long. And I guess my husband, because he wasn't allowed in the room when I was getting the C-section because I was unconscious, he heard one of the doctors yell, "Whoa, the other one's sticking his head out," because they were ready to come out anyway. So my second baby, baby B, who was originally baby A, was also born at 6:03. They were born about 5 seconds apart. And he was born at 6 pounds exactly, and he was 18.9 inches long. So I go and I hold my babies, and I just think to myself, they're absolutely gorgeous. And the weirdest thing was I felt like I wanted to cry, but I couldn't cry, and I don't know what that is. And one of the doctors later on told me that a lot of times the drugs will make it so you don't have that kind of emotion, which I thought was interesting because Dilaudid, I think, is an opiate, which would make sense. At that point, I was able to hold them for just a little bit, and I told the lady, I was like, "I'm very, very tired. I need to go," because I was afraid I was going to drop one of them. They were connected to so many cords and everything, but I made the conscious effort to go see my babies, and I was super excited to see them after I got a little bit more sleep. As I'm being wheeled back up to my room, I remember looking at a bunch of pictures, and I thought to myself, wow, this facility's got to be really good with multiples because all of these people have had triplets. And I think about that on my way back up to my room, and I immediately went to sleep. So I wake up in the morning, and my husband is there. And the first thing I tell him is, I'm really excited about the boys being in this NICU because everybody's had triplets. And he told me, he was like, "I never saw any pictures of triplets. I saw lots of pictures of twins, but no triplets." Lo and behold, whatever the Dilaudid was had me seeing triple, I guess, if you want to say. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So the next day we go to the NICU, and they had told me that both boys had developed jaundice. So they were bathing underneath the lights, and I had also found out that day that I was severely anemic. Because I have O negative blood, it's expensive, and they were trying to not give me another blood transfusion even though I technically needed one. When I went in, my hemoglobin was at 14, and the day that they had told me I was anemic, my hemoglobin was at 6.9. It was almost a 7. So I had lost half of my blood, and I just remember I was so tired and so weak and so pale. But my babies were here, and I was here, and I was alive. And on day 3, they were getting ready to let me go, and I was really excited because I wanted to sleep in my own bed, so I didn't have a bunch of nurses coming in taking my blood pressure, my vitals, and everything like that, and was looking forward to getting a little bit of a good night's sleep before my kids came home, because who knows when they were going to come home. So on day 3, about 10 minutes before I was going to be released, they checked my blood pressure, and it had spiked. And they said, "Oh dear, this isn't good." And my blood pressure was really, really high, and it took them 3 days to figure out what medication was right for me to take for my blood pressure, and to this day I'm still on blood pressure medication. So I don't know exactly what happened, but it's in August it'll be 3 years and I'm still on blood pressure medication. So I actually stayed another 3 days. I was let go after 5 days, and I went home and I slept. And then the next morning I got myself ready, and me and my husband went back to the hospital to go visit my babies in the NICU. And the way the NICU works is you have 11 hours where you can see them, and then you have a 1 hour window where you're not able to go in because it's shift transfer, and then you have another 11 hours and then another hour shift transfer, if that makes sense. And so we went there after shift change, and I had picked up the phone like I normally do, and I'm like, hey, you know, it's Jasmine, can I come see my kids? And they said, oh no, you can't come in right now. And I said, but it's not shift transfer. And they said, yeah, we know, but we'll let you know. And I said, okay. And at this point I'm panicking because I'm like, why won't they let me back there? You know, what's happening? Why are they not communicating to me? If all these other moms are getting to go back there, why can't I go see my kids? Like, what happened? Are they needing to brace to tell me something? What's happening? Why, you know? And then we're sitting in the waiting room and I'm panicking, and we get a phone call and my heart drops because it says hospital, you know, the name of the hospital. And I'm like, they're calling to tell me something happened to one of my kids. And they were like, you know, hi, is this so-and-so? And I said, yes. And they were like, oh yeah, we just wanted to let you know that the kids are going to be released today. And we were just wondering what time you would be here. And I told them, I'm like, I'm in the hospital right now. Can I come see them? And they said, oh yeah, sure, come on back. And I was so relieved. I was like, they're calling me to tell me that I can bring my babies home. Not that I had to bring my babies somewhere else, you know, and figure out plans, because that was a huge fear of mine. So we go back there and I'm holding them, and they pass all of their tests. And while we're waiting, they make us watch a bunch of different videos on shaken baby syndrome. They make us watch videos on doing CPR on a child and all of that. And at this point, me and my husband we're paying attention and we're following along, but we never think to ourselves like, oh, we're going to need to use this one day. So we bring the boys home, and about 2 weeks later, Cyrus has a huge incident. I'm asleep, and my husband comes running in and he says, Cyrus isn't breathing, he's turning blue. And I said, what? So he runs in and he brings me him, and I turn him upside down thinking he's choking, and I'm trying to pat his back. It's not working. And at this point, his chest is tightening up, and you can see all of the veins in his chest, and you can see his eyes are rolling back in his head, and he's turning blue. And I call 911, and they're walking us through doing mouth to mouth, and my husband was the one that was doing it. I couldn't do it. I can't explain it. Everything just, it was like a really bad dream, and I just was able to give him directions, but I couldn't physically touch him. I don't know how to explain it. It was terrible, but thank God for my husband, and my husband did mouth to mouth until the ambulance came. And the ambulance went ahead and they took him to our regular emergency room, and he wasn't breathing very well. And we tried to get him back into the NICU that they were born in because it had only been 2 weeks. But they weren't able to, and so they transferred him over to a different hospital. And we had went to there, and he ended up staying for a week, and they have no idea what happened. What they think happened was that we caught him in the beginning of SIDS, and we were able to save him. And my camera's about to die, so that's pretty much the end of it. As soon as I can charge this a little bit and my boys wake up from their nap, I'm going to go ahead and introduce them to you. Again, they are 3 years old now, so it's definitely a big difference than when they were born, but I'm going to go ahead and insert some pictures of the boys throughout the journey of having them. Thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye. Okay, say hi.
Hi.
So this is Cyrus, and this is Bam, and this is Xander. Huh, Bubs? So a tow truck. So this is technically Baby B, who was originally supposed to be Baby A, and then this is Baby B, Or who is baby A, who was originally supposed to be baby B. And I just figured I'd introduce them this way. That way you guys had a general idea of who they are. Please get your finger out of your mouth. He is also a thumbsucker. Let's see, what else? How old are you guys?
2.
You're 2. What's your favorite color?
3.
No, what's your favorite color?
Gray.
Your favorite color is gray? What color is yours, Xander?
Gray.
Oh, you both have the same favorite color now? Okay.
Pocket.
Well, say hi, Internet.
Hi, Internet. Hi, Internet.
Say hi, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
You guys are cute. I love you. So anyways, these are my boys. He is my little miracle baby. He's the one that we had the little scare with, who got to spend an extra week in the hospital. He has not.
Pocket.
You do have a pocket. Do you like your pocket?
Pocket.
Is this your pocket in your shirt?
Wow.
So I'm sorry that I am not looking directly at the camera, but I'm trying to make sure that we're all in frame. So my apologies. They're already getting bored, so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Bye.
Bye.